does not help. I have too many bright lights on, so I'm going to turn this down. There you go. That's better. Yeah, I need the darker background or else it just gets like too shiny. Just gonna quickly okay. I think that's well. I'm just gonna one more thing for the social media bits, and then we're gonna just dive right into it because I know we're starting a little bit late today. So. Alrighty. Hello and welcome to the Streaming Parson podcast, number 9. Today I didn't really have anything really thought out. I mean, I was about to do like a part 2 to last week's, but I kind of, like last week's, we exhausted talking about how weird time is and how we as human beings perceive time. Because I was thinking of doing today as like a part 2, because I was like, holy crap, like, can you believe? No, well, for starters, it's already like the end of 2021, right? And man, people were like, oh god, 2021 was so terrible, right? Like, there was quite a bit of that. And so, at the beginning of 2021, a lot of people were dreading the year, right? But then, we're already here, right? We're already at the end of 2021. Isn't that weird, right? And then on top of that, with the end of 2021 coming around, of course, that means we're going to have Christmas, right? Yeah, we're already, like, Christmas season's coming right up, right? And so I'm going to have a couple, like, not exactly podcasts, although I'll still kind of call it, like, the Streaming Parson podcast, but we'll have some, like, kind of Christmas features on the channel, and of course, on top of that, we're going to do other stuff for December for the Christmas season. So I do a little bit of that. And so with that being said, today was just going to be like a more relaxed day, right? Because, I mean, sure, we have a couple more weeks in November, but dude, man, those weeks are going to go by fast. I mean, you just know, right? You just know that they're going to go by fast. And we're going to be jumping right into 2022 soon, right? It's so weird to think that. But of course, 2022, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff. At least I like to hope there's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on. For starters, Triangle Strategy is a game I mentioned that, like, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to actually play it on the channel. I've had a little bit of trouble with with a Square Enix game, if you remember my Bravely Default 2 playthrough on the channel, where I did like about three quarters of the game I did as streams, but then, like, at one point, for some reason, the music company that excuse me, the music company that did Bravely Default 2, they started putting all these copyright claims, and then it was really hard to stream the game because anything you did in the game, you would be copyright claim, and then eventually my stream would just die midstream, and that was a really asinine thing to deal with. And so I uploaded the rest of the videos as like videos, even though I still like streamed for like 3 hours, right? Or I filmed myself do it for 3 hours, kind of thing, right? And then treated it like a stream somewhat, but that was his own crazy thing. I'm hoping that doesn't happen with Triangle Strategies because they are made by the same people, right? So on the one hand, I really want to play that game on the channel. Maybe I'll have someone's help with like maybe altering the sound of the game so that I don't have that problem. I'm gonna check that out with somebody. Be a lot better prepared for it if that ends up being a possibility. Because I do want to play Triangle Strategies on the channel. Like that's a game I've been looking forward to. I saw the trailer to that bad boy last year, and I was just like, oh man, like I gotta play it, right? And so that's one thing to look forward to in 2022. And then of course there's other like turn-based strategies. I mean, that's kind of what I play a lot of, right? Another one I want to do is Songs of Conquest, I think is what it's called. It's like that Heroes of Might Magic wannabe, which if you haven't already been watching, I've been playing a lot of Heroes of Might Magic 2 on the channel. Of course, I am taking a long time with this one map, right? It's taking me like a month, loads of videos just to get through it, right? And so, I mean, that's kind of the nature of those kind of maps, right? And so, you know, a game like that, with Songs of Conquest. I don't know why I keep calling it Path of Conquest. Songs of Conquest looks like that kind of game. I mean, at E3, they advertise as like the spiritual successor of Heroes of Might Magic. They even opened it with like, "Do you remember games like Heroes of Might Magic?" I'm like, yeah, dude. That's why Throwback Thursday videos exist, my guy. But like, they totally advertise the game that way, and so if there's a spiritual successor to Heroes of Might Magic that's new, I'm definitely gonna play on the channel because like Heroes of Might Magic is my jam, right? Love that game. So those are two things to definitely look forward to in 2022. But as I've mentioned before, I do plan on having playing games on the channel again. Of course, we'll have to sort out like how I'm gonna do that because I don't want to. I might cut the podcast and go back to what I was doing before, where I play like games on Monday, Wednesday kind of thing. I might do that. I might do, or I might just the adding a day to the week wouldn't work, right? That'd be pretty tricky. Or in the future, I might do my podcast videos as the uploads instead of Throwback Thursday videos. We'll see what we end up doing, right? Because I think after a while, I think I'm gonna not do Throwback Thursday. We'll do something else instead of Throwback Thursday videos, and then I'll have like the podcast as like a video upload instead. Do like philosophy talks or something like that, right? So that's very possible. So we'll see what we end up doing to change it, but come 2022, we are going to be playing games on the channel again because I mean, I know for me like I was like, oh, I want to take a bit of a break, and I know 4 months. Well, it's been 3 months. It's been like 2.5 months already, but 2.5 months does feel like kind of long. Like you're probably wondering how long of a break does this guy even need, right? To not to play games on the channel, right? But I kind of like give you a little bit with like Heroes Might Magic 2, right? With the Throwback Thursday videos. So if I end up playing games on the channel again on streams, then I might cut the Throwback Thursday videos and then just do um, like games on the Monday, Wednesday kind of thing. Of course, then we'd have to readjust our timetables, right? Because then like I would want to stream earlier again, like I did before, right? Once again with the gaming streams, because one, I want to have more time in a given sitting of how much I play, right? So there's that to consider, and of course you want to get through it. Like some of these games, they're going to be pretty long, right? Like any RPG or turn-based strategy games, they're going to be pretty long games to play, right? So I want to have more time to be able to play them. And so if that were the case, then we have to like go back to the 2 o'clock streams, right? Which is kind of early for a lot of you guys, especially like people who share the same time zone as me. For West Coast, 2 p.m. Pacific time is really early to do a stream, and so we'll worry about that as we get closer to 2022. So there's stuff like that to think about, right? And so we'll see how we're gonna go about it, but I do plan on going back to playing games on the channel come January. Might even do a little bit before then too, just to get myself kind of in the mode, right? Get yourself in the mode of doing it. So we'll see, right? We'll see. And then in 2022, we're going to also go a different direction with our Bible reading streams. Because I did a bunch of Old Testament books. All the books so far we've done on the channel are Old Testament books, right? We did Genesis so far, we did Exodus, we did Judges, we did Samuel, and we did Kings, right? And so far we've done all Old Testament. I think for 2022, I want to jump into doing New Testament stuff. We'll see exactly which ones I want to do. Like, for example, in the beginning of 2022, I'll definitely do, like, Luke and Acts, right? And then we'll see what we do after that. We might do, like, one of the Pauline epistles. Or we could do a totally different direction and maybe do, like, Peter, the letters of Peter or whatever, right? We'll see what we end up doing, but when we do that, we're definitely going to take it a lot slower because there's a lot more stuff to talk about in those books, and that's something I would really like to do for the next year and spend a lot of time doing that. So that's kind of just some thoughts of what's going to happen in 2022. Lord willing, we're still here, right? The world doesn't just blow up, but I mean, the world is, everything that's going on in this crazy ass world, is like a ticking time bomb at this point. But, here's the hoping, right? And all of, you take whatever opportunities you get to, proclaim the message of God and all that. So those are some general consensus thoughts of what I'm going to do for 2022. And I hope you guys, are excited to check those out when they start coming out, right? Of course, in December I'll probably lay it out a lot more of like how exactly we're gonna go about things. But I've kind of laid out the general ideas of what we're gonna do. But like for example, when January comes around, I gotta find a game to play that's gonna hold me off before I start playing Triangle Strategies, right? And so I haven't thought that part through So I'm like, what do I want to do? Do I want to play maybe I won't play an RPG at the beginning of the year. Maybe I'll start slow, start with something lighter. Not a game that takes you over 60 hours to play, right? Because I know Triangle Strategy is gonna be pretty nuts, and it's gonna be a pretty time intensive, game, right? So we'll see what we do for that. And then, excuse me, piece of fruit got stuck in my tooth there. Anyway, we'll see what we end up doing for those, right? For the beginning of January, the beginning of the year, that part is kind of blurry of what I'm gonna do. Well, except for maybe the Bible reading. I think I might just start off with the Book of Luke, right? I was thinking of starting a little bit lighter, read something else first, and then jump into the Book of Luke. But we'll see. And so that's kind of the general plan. I just thought that I kind of express these thoughts now because I'm like, it's good, before you know it, we're already going to be doing this stuff, right? Because once again, 6 weeks, and we're going to be moving 2022. I think that's weird, right? That's only 40 something days, right? 42 days. Well, that's how exactly 6 weeks is. But it's a little longer than that. But you get the point, right? it's only just over 40 days, and then we're moving into the next year, right? So it's we got to prep ourselves for that, and I got to get myself like excuse me, I got to get myself like mentally prepared for that, right? And how I'm gonna carry out this channel. And I've had some suggestions of things that can be upgraded. For example, I really need a new thumbnail. I really need a new design. I'm hoping to have a buddy help me out in January, and we're gonna change some stuff here. That's something that I want to put more. It's one of those things that like I want to put more work into this channel, but at the same time, it's not easy because of like okay, if like I'm working full time and then like originally I was gonna have like Taki come help me out with like design stuff, but he works full time, and then like my buddy that I'm gonna have help me out with in January, he works full time, right? So it's just and it's part of those things that like okay, we're all older guys, right? So you expect that, right? Maybe some of you younger guys that are watching this, you're like, oh, how do you guys never have enough time, right? But well, I mean, if I'm going to be playing games on this channel, clearly I don't have enough time, right? Because I'm using my extra time to play games on this channel, right? So yeah, it's not easy to find extra time to do anything, and so we'll see. Like I said, I want to do some upgrades and change some stuff for the channel and make it look better, improve, polish its look as we move into 2022. I definitely want to be doing that, but that's not easy, right? And it takes a bit of time. It takes a lot of knowledge that I don't have. So I'm hoping to get help with that in the near future as we move forward. So there's some ideas in that regard too, and changing the design of this and other things like that, right? So just some thoughts that I'm just throwing out there for you to look forward to as we move forward with this channel. So that's my 15-minute preamble of me rambling about things related to the topic. But I mean, like I said, I don't have a real topic for today. I just kind of want to have some time for us to like talk about like as we move into December, right? Because it's one of those things that like okay, so to give a little pretense of this, like when December comes around, it's all Christmas related, right? I'm having Christmas related podcasts. I'm having a guest speaker. Unfortunately, Taki's not going to get the honor of being the first person. I'm going to have someone else come to the channel for December, and all of those podcasts will be Christmas related. So everything's going to be we're going to talk a lot about Christmas stuff, right? And so with that being said, we like December's pretty like set in stone of what we're doing, right? So there's really no like today is a day where it's just like, well, then I can just talk about whatever I want, right? Because we're not in that Christmas mode yet. Although, I mean, I was thinking today I could tell you some funny stories about like the last week. I might do a little bit of that too, because this little bit I'm talking about now will only be like another like not that long, right? But it's just one of those funny things where like with Christmas coming up, right? And the other thing too that makes it tough to do like podcasts in December, and I don't know if any like it's one of those things that like I don't know if socialites really talk about this, but I mean not like I'm an official socialite, but this is true of like any podcast as well, and any kind of like online talk chatting videos if you like watch Twitch and stuff like that. This is something that definitely comes up in that category as well, which I used to do like chatting things and talk about theology and philosophy and stuff like that. But one thing that's really tough when you get to the Christmas season is that like everybody's in Christmas mode mentally, right? But then of course because Christmas mode, December is December, schools, final exams, people worry about like shopping for Christmas and stuff like that, and so it gets really hard to be able to really concentrate on thinking about things like philosophy, theology, and stuff like that. The meaning of Christmas, right? You think of like in more recent years as you get older, I find that like I haven't been able to find time to like watch Christmas films, for instance, like in December, You think that like December is the time you whip out all the Christmas films, you know, like your Home Alone and Die Hard and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and all those movies, right? You whip them out, you start going through and watching all of them because Christmas time is the time to do it, right? But as you get older, at least in my experience, as I gotten older, I find that I barely watch any like Christmas movies, and because you're part of it is that maybe you're oversaturated already because like okay, you go to work and like you hear Christmas songs all the time, right? When you go to work, and then of course like well you go online and everybody's talking Christmas related things about the Christmas parties that you're gonna have and all that stuff, and you know even though Halloween 2021 was only a little bit improved from 2020 because 2020 was terrible, as I've already talked about, here's hoping that Christmas 2021, don't screw this up, right? We're going to have a good Christmas this year. It's not going to be like everybody's isolated and stuff like that, like last year for Christmas. Because Christmas is, like, if Halloween was already like about community, like Christmas even more so, right? And to celebrate the gift of you know, God giving us the opportunity to be united, right? First, between man and God, and then through that, people can have real connection with each other, right? And so, here's the hoping that, like, the pandemic doesn't screw over Christmas. And so, stuff like that. You're thinking about stuff like that for, when December comes around, right? If you guys are even going to do Christmas dinners and stuff like that, right? We'll see. We'll see. So funny story. I was at work on Sunday. I was working on Sunday, and it was so funny. So this guy, I don't. One of the guys working there. He had his like Spotify list or whatever playing. The music that was going through the speaker and all that. And the first couple songs, and I should have seen this car. I should have seen this car. I should have been like, no, stop, stop, stop. Right? I should have tried to stop him before he did this. So, first song comes on. It's a Mariah Carey song. You already know where this is going, right? So a Mariah Carey song. I think it was like We Belong Together or whatever that song's called, right? Older song, And that song was playing. It's a nice song. It's a fun song to listen. At least I like it. I'm one of those weird people that actually like some Mariah Carey music. At least the better ones like that one, We Belong Together. That one was playing. And then there was another song. I can't remember what the other song that was playing. It might have been a more recent one that I'm not familiar with. 2 Mariah Carey songs play back to back. And, you look at it in hindsight, you think, like, I really should have seen this coming. The third song that comes on the speaker, you know what it is? Of course you know what it is, right? All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. And I know we just passed Remembrance Day, which I know for a lot of people that's like, okay, that's when you can start doing all the Christmas music stuff at work and all that. In my mind, it's like, no, December 1st, you can do your Christmas stuff. At December 1st, all Christmas related things fair game, right? But November is still a little early. I mean, in Canada, there's really nothing between Halloween and Christmas. Whereas, like, in the United States, they have American Thanksgiving and all that, which is coming up pretty soon, actually. And the funny thing about American Thanksgiving is that, like, when Black Friday comes around, Canada does something just like it. We have our own version of Black Friday, or Canadian Black Friday, which is just really a reason to have a sale to make people buy more stuff, right? So, Black Friday is coming up and all that. And as a matter of fact, in Canada, it's the Black Friday week is actually just started. So it's kind of weird to think of that, right? Like, American Thanksgiving is not for like another week, 2 weeks almost, right? It's not this coming Thursday, but the Thursday after, if memory serves. I think it's usually the last Thursday of November is when American Thanksgiving is, right? And so that's like in like almost 2 weeks. It's like technically 11 days, but you get the idea, right? But, up in Canada, we have like Black Friday sales. Like, what? What? People going, I mean, part of it is that, like, you can be all like, oh, it's the over consumerism culture. And I mean that's part of it, obviously, but it's just one of those things like, how shameless can you be, right? How shameless can you be? I mean, it's one thing for like Canadians to start playing Christmas music in the middle of November. It's another thing. It's like, oh yeah, we're already doing Black Friday sales and stuff like that. And, it's kind of weird, but whatever, right? It's just weird to think that. I mean, people live for the sales though, because it's one of those things where it's like we spend way too much money, then we never have enough money, so then we have to wait for the sales to do it, and then when the sales happen, people go ballistic and bonkers and lose their mind, right? And it's one of those things that like, and this will be its own. This should be its own podcast or its own day. I don't want to go too deep into it right now, but it's one of those like amoral moments of like capitalism that everybody complains about, but then people still participate in it because, I mean, one on the one hand, like the alternative is worse if you think about it, but like the amoral nature, and when I say amoral, I mean like the idea is that capitalism is the fundamental problem with it is it doesn't care about things like morality. Morality has no place in it, and so the reason why everybody says it's so awful in general is that because bad people tend to be at the top because but then of course like have you met human beings, right? And so you know the bad people generally get to the top and then like they take it, they themselves are bad people, so you can't really judge the system. You have to judge more of the people at the top end up being bad people, right? But the fundamental ideas of like say capitalism of like, okay, people can make money, make their own money, their labor is privatized and stuff like that, that's all good on paper, right? But then when people actually practice it out, but because most humans are pretty terrible, then that being practiced ends up becoming twisted and pretty terrible pretty quickly because people are people are immoral, which makes something amoral like capitalism become immoral, right? As opposed to the system itself being immoral. So basically, the idea I'm getting at is it's because people are immoral that capitalism becomes immoral. Not the way that a lot of people present it, saying that capitalism is immoral and that's why people are still immoral. That is not the act. That's actually that line of thinking, which is what a lot of people use when they, say, "Oh, capitalism's terrible" or whatever. Right? That would be incorrect, right? It's the idea that like, well, the capitalism itself is amoral, but because it's amoral, it can be easily tainted by a whole bunch of human beings that are all immoral, right? Which is, well, the bulk of us, right? Because none of us are Jesus, right? So, but going back, well, the reason why I even brought this up was, that's it's one of those things that's like so sickening about Black Friday in general, if you think about it, right? Because you hear stories every year about like people getting killed during Black Friday because like people just like it's like a zoo basically, right? And you know people just trample each other and fight each other over like material things, right? And it's ridiculous. And of course, it's the ultimate irony, right? The day before Black Friday would be Thanksgiving, the day you should be thankful for what you have, right? In this crazy ass world, you should be thankful for what you have. And then the next day, Black Friday comes around and everybody's just trampling over other people because it's not like people give a shit about the well-being of other people, right? And it's so terrible when you word it like that. It is, but it's one of those things that like I'm really sick when like people badmouth like, oh, like capitalism's so terrible. It's like, yeah, but then like people not too different from you, people like you, do the kind of crap that happens on Black Friday, and then that's why like nobody can trust anyone, right? Like, and of your point is moot, right? And then of course the other thing too is that like those greedy capitalists at the top, they don't care because an amoral principle like capitalism, you get people that end up being pretty bad people, making businesses and whatever. They just go, well, we only care about the money, right? And so all other morality pushed aside, and that's just the way it is. And so it's one of those things that, like, I don't know. Well, I just brought this up because I brought up, like, Black Friday sale is a thing, and sure, online shopping also exists to make things easier, quote unquote, but then, like, you run into other problems with online shopping, right? Because then, sometimes stuff runs out pretty quickly out of stock online, and then of course, like, half the time delivery services get real sloppy during Black Friday because they have to do so much work, right? And shout out to all you delivery boys out there, that run around all over the place to deliver people's products that they buy online, right? And it gets more ridiculous when big sales like this happen, right? Because then that means those guys will work a lot more. Sure, they make more money, and, well, technically their profiteers make more money, but you get the idea, right? And so, but it gets rough on those guys, right? The delivery people, as they have to run around more because people are buying more on sale days like Black Friday. So it's a little better than, like, when people are trampling each other in real life, but it does get rough. And I mean, there's no real way around it, right? Because once again, human beings are pre-programmed to always go for the sales, right? They always try to get the most out of. They try to get in as much as possible with putting in as little as possible, right? That's why sales are, that's why sales work as well as they do, right? Because I can get the same amount but for less money, as if I paid normal price. Like, yeah, definitely do it, right? And, you get people doing crazy things for, like, people would kill each other over, like, a big TV that would normally cost you, like, what, $500, but on Black Friday sale it's only like 150, right? It's only 25% of the normal price or whatever. And so, like, people lose their minds over that because part of it is that, well, we're pre-programmed to always want more for less, right? But then again, when you start doing that, you start shedding bits of your own humanity just so you can benefit yourself, right? I mean, that's fundamentally why selfishness is such a vice, is viewed as such a vice, right? Because, I mean, people talk about, oh, it's so important for us to embrace our humanity, be human, being human, right? And it's like, yes, I agree with those things, but then those well then people, they start doing things like what happens with Black Friday, right? And they start thinking only about themselves, and it sheds then you're not about embracing humanity, embracing your own humanity or whatever, right? When you act selfishly, which I know sounds like paradoxical, but I mean, fundamentally, real humanity is us, the people, coming together, right? And I talk about this when I was about, like, celebrating Halloween, right? And celebrating anything really, right? It's about people coming together. And I mean, it is those things that make life great, right? It's when we as people come together, whether it's your family, your friends, your community, right? Stuff like that. It's when you come together and have a grand old time, make some laughs, make some memories, right? That's what being human. That's what really being human is about. But in our consumerist culture, we've lost a lot of that, right? And so that's one of the real shames of the postmodern person, the postmodern person we have become today. And so it's just one of those things that, like, as we move into December, and some of my Christmas podcasts, I'll definitely bring some of this up again. Talk about, like, for us to be together, right, and embracing our own humanity and stuff like that. Okay, I'm gonna turn it from this more melodramatic tone to, like, some fun story time, because that was something I was gonna do, because this last week has been pretty great, right? Work and laughing about people already playing Christmas music, and it's only just past the middle of November. I mean, technically, we're at the halfway point. It's only November 15th today. Because yeah, today's November 15th. Sometimes you get lost in track of days, right? Maybe it's just me being old or something. But it's only the 15th of November. We're not even past the halfway point. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, depends where you are in the world, I guess. But we're only halfway through November. And the workplace, they cranking up Christmas music, and it's like, oh no, I'm gonna have to listen to this for weeks. Because there's only so many times I can hear Wham's, Last Christmas. There's only so many times I can hear Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas. There's only so many times, right? Like, it's one of those funny things, too, when you think about, like, when Christmas music rolls around. Like, on the one hand, it's like, oh, yeah, it's Christmas. We get to do it now. But then, that nostalgia is going to wear out pretty quickly. And so, I mean, it was only, like, 2 shifts of work so far, and I'm already sick of it. It's like, oh no, it's only gonna get worse. I'm already like kind of getting sick of Christmas music now, and it's only been 2 days since my workplace started doing it. So, right, like no, it's not good. I'm gonna lose my mind pretty quickly. So there's stuff like that, right? And then of course, this yesterday we had after I came home from work yesterday, it was pretty great. We had a family gathering. The primary, I don't know why I pronounce it that way. The primary reason we were all getting together was because a family member, a cousin of mine, is having a baby soon. Technically a couple months, but we decided to have the baby shower early because this is I don't know about where you live, but here in Vancouver, it's a 50-50 whether, like, some winters you get no snow. And it's like, okay, I'll take Vancouver's crappy rain over Vancouver's snow. Because when you get that other 50% of the Vancouver snow, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. People hate dealing with that. And I'm hoping we don't have snow this year. It's one of those things. Okay, let me just finish my other story before I talk about the snow thing. So we had the baby shower for my cousin early. Then when she's actually due, she's not due till like February, right? It's only November. But hey, like 6 weeks we're already in 2021. So like, or sorry, 2022 in 6 weeks. So like, a baby due in February. It's only 4 more weeks from that, right? So it's coming soon, right? And with that said, though, we were like, okay, my cousin wanted to do the baby shower now because it's like, you don't want to do a baby shower in January when there might be snow, because that would be hellish, right? Hellish to be dealing with snow in Vancouver. Because here's the thing about Vancouver, all right? People talk about how great living here is, but for some reason, when it starts snowing, everybody forgets how to drive, all right? Everybody forgets how to drive. Roads are terrible. I don't know what's wrong with this city and how people run this place, but like there's never actually any good ways of cleaning up snow on the streets when there is snow and stuff like that. And so we're like, oh God, like I'm always hoping it doesn't snow around here because I hate dealing with the snow. I hate dealing with it. And it gets worse when like, okay, so I think the thing that really sold it for me of why I hate snow so much now, especially as an adult, because it's funny where like as a kid you're like, snow is awesome, I love snow when you're a kid, right? Because when you're a kid you just kind of jump around the snow and chuck snow at people, right, and whatever, and so that's fun when you're a kid. But when you're an adult, it's never fun, right? Because when you're an adult you have to be the one who cleans the streets all the time. You have to clean your sidewalk and your walkway to your house all the time. Well, I know some of you guys live in apartments or whatever, and you're like, I don't deal with that. But, if you live in a house like I do, oh God, like, shoveling snow sucks. It sucks, right? And you gotta do it every couple of hours, right? Because it's always snowing. Because with Vancouver, it's never in between. Either it's just like no snow, crappy Vancouver rain, It's still super cold, but it's cold because of like the bone chill of the rain and wind, right? But I mean, I know someone like the prairie's gonna be like, oh, it's not that cold in Vancouver. It gets like -30 in like Edmonton, which I have experienced before, and I wish I never have to experience it ever again. But then like, you know, it's still super cold. But I'd rather take the rain because like rain is not too bad to deal with, right? You just get we have like special rain, like special umbrellas in Vancouver that people use that like for heavier rain kind of thing. It's like those huge ass thick umbrellas, right? I have one. I have mine ready, right? I always have it ready because I always hope that like, oh please, when winter comes around, let it be like crappy rain instead of snow because you don't want it to snow around here. Or it's either the crappy rain all the time, or it's like tons and tons of snow. And I and I hate dealing with snow. Okay, so I think the thing that really sold it when I really started to hate snow was when I was in my mid-20s. So like 8 years ago, ish, something like that. I was in my mid-20s. I think I was 25, 26 at the time, something like that, right? So like 7, 8 years ago, whatever. I was at home, just kind of chilling out at home. When I was at home, I get a doorbell ring, right? I get a doorbell ring. And this guy comes to the door, and he tells me that he got his truck stuck just outside of my house. Now, I can't really... I wish there was a way for me to show you this properly. But basically, I'm going to draw this. Let's draw this out, actually. Where's my paint program? Let's draw this. I want to show, okay. How do I do this? Paint 3D. Where's my display capture? There you go. Okay, I want to show this. No, whatever. Okay, so let's pretend that like, okay, this house is this square represents my house, right? And I live in like okay, I didn't let me try this again. Let me try this again. So let's pretend this is my house. I need to put it here. And here's my neighbor's house, right? And that guy's and other neighbors and houses go down this way. And then the street goes like this, right? And the street goes like this. And then the guys that live across the street from me, right? So this is where I live. I could technically just do Google Maps to show you this, but I don't want to show you exactly where I live. So anyway, I live in like this weird... Okay, so this is the street I live on. And then what my street does... So the main street is like over here. So for some reason, this side of the street, there's houses all the way over, like houses go this way until you get to the main street, right? And so it goes like this, and then it goes like this to the main street, right? So let's pretend this place over here is the main street. I need to erase it for a second because I need to erase some of that. Now it's not that okay. So if this is the main street over here, and then there's a house over here, right? And so if you're on the main street, right, this house would be the corner house. But it's not that simple from where I live. So where I live, there's a little like alleyway. So this becomes an alley right here. And there's actually another road. So this is my house. So this is whoops. Let me do that better. So here's where Spars lives. Spars lives here, right? So this is my house. The guy comes to my house and he's like, yo, I got my truck stuck. And he got it stuck like here. Let's draw this little truck here. Yeah, check out my paint skills, man. Yeah. So anyway, so here's this truck. Now, the thing is, I didn't draw this. Obviously, the truck is not that small and the street is not that big, but you get the point. So basically, the problem is in this area here, right? I'm going to use a different color to describe this. So we're going to use green. We're going to use this pen here. So this area here, right? It's kind of like a little bit of a divot, right? It kind of dips downward. So what I'm getting is that, like, okay, so if the street is level, right? This part is level. This part is level. And you get onto the main street, and then obviously the main street is level. The alleyway is mostly level, but there's a little bit of a, you drive into a ditch and out of a ditch as you go from here, you turn into the alleyway, and then, over here on this side would be like the back alley, and, the garage, my garage is like back here, right? Anyway, this guy got his truck stuck in the ditch part. Of course, he didn't know that there was a ditch there because, it was snow. It was, full, filled with snow. So what happened was, this guy was driving his truck along here, and then his truck went over the ditch part, like the wheels on one side of the truck, went into the ditch, and then he got stuck in the ditch. Now, what I ended up having to do was I had to dig out the entire area. I had to dig out this entire ditch so that the wheel of his truck could actually hit the ground again. And then, of course, you have to dig everything here as well, where the rest of the truck is, so that, his tires can get friction and stuff on the ground again, right? Because you can't really get much friction on the snow itself. And oh my goodness, like I just went like batshit crazy when I had to do this. It's because I was the only one home. The guy, because my house is, when I showed you in that picture, my house is the one on the corner right next to where his truck got stuck. What I should have done, when I look hindsight, I should have like gathered the neighbors. I should have like gone door to door and say, hey, why don't you get people from, I should have told the guy at least, or maybe even do it myself, go to the neighbor and say, hey, I need your help with this. I don't know. Maybe this was me being a 25-year-old cocky ass, thinking I just like, oh, I'm a tough young guy. I can do this myself, right? Maybe I was thinking something stupid like that, right? So I brought out my shovel and I dug. I had to dig this guy's truck out of over like almost a foot of snow, because of course, no one ever actually cleans like, non-main street roads, right? And that was another problem. And then you ask the question like, what the hell is this guy driving? And then when I say truck, I mean like, a large cargo truck, right? It's something that you would, an industry would use, right? Well, not like those mega trucks, you know what I mean? But something that you would have like, well, one of those mover trucks, kind of trucks, right? The big white backing and all that, right? One of those trucks. Why is a guy driving one of those trucks through a residential area? God knows why, right? And he gets this huge ass thing stuck. And the ditch part is like a whole foot of snow, right? Because sure, the street part, like this part here would have been shoveled, right? They send the, whatchamacallit through it, the snow plow thing, right? But they don't send the plows don't go through alleyways. Which, you think about it like this, like, if anyone who drives a truck in any place that snows should figure out where snow plows go, and anywhere a snow plow does not go, you don't drive there. That's what every truck driver should be taught. At least that's what I think, because from my experience that year and me for being traumatized and hating snow forever, I don't think this guy was ever taught that, like, okay, you don't do that, right? And of course, the other reason why people would drive their truck through a residential area is like shortcuts and stuff, right? Because everybody's looking to take a shortcut, right? Instead of driving along through traffic, because on the main street, as I mentioned earlier, people in Vancouver forget how to drive when it starts snowing. So, the main streets are pretty terrible too, right? And oh my goodness, don't get me started on like public transit, which is like even more hellish, right? Because of course, like, people trench their slush into the bus, and then the bus's floor has like all this slush, so the entirety of the bus is basically a walking hazard. Oh, it just is terrible. But anyway, back to my snow shoveling story. So, being the idiot that I was, I took it upon myself to dig this guy's truck out of the snow ditch for 2 hours by myself. No help whatsoever. Not even the guy in his truck. You know what he ended up doing? He ended up going back into his truck. He had I assume like there was a woman with him in the truck. The two of them just sat in the truck while I was outside busting my ass, digging this guy, out of the thing, right? I even brought out 2 shovels. So that the guy could help me. But once he got into the truck, I didn't want to. At the time, I didn't want to be an asshole and be like, "Hey, why aren't you helping?" Right? I was being all nice about it, so I dug him. Even though I brought out the other shovel, he saw the other shovel, so he should have known that, like, oh yeah, this is your truck. We gotta help you get out. You should probably help, right? But no, the guy and his, the woman with him, whoever she was because I don't know if it was like his wife or maybe a daughter. It's kind of hard to tell. I know I made 2 extremes there, right? But whether it was his wife or his daughter or someone, probably a relative. Why is she riding the truck with him? Why is the guy using a work truck to drive around like as if he's a civilian? That's his own. There's lots of questions of this is really shifty, right? But anyway, like and the guy just sat there in his truck, and the person with him just sat there. They watched me for 2 hours as I dug him out of this ditch. And my mom was also my mom's old, right? So she can't help. Even back then, like my parents are a lot older, and you don't expect people over 55 to be shoveling snow, right? So my mom is one thing for my mom not to help me. But this guy just sits in his truck the whole time, 2 hours, right? As I'm busting my ass, shoveling snow. Oh, ever since then, like, and now I make it a habit every year, every year that it snows, which has been most of them, unfortunately, because contrary to global warming beliefs, it still snows a lot around here, and a lot more than I like. Because if I wish there was global warming, because then I wish it didn't snow around here. I really do, because snow around here sucks. But anyway, 2 hours later, I'm like super tired, super cold, because I've been outside this whole time, busting my ass off, right? No help. And I'm like, oh, just ruined my day. Ruined. And so I take it upon me every year, when it snows, which has been more often than not. I think probably like out of the 8 years since then, it's been like 6 of the years it snowed, right? 6 out of 8, maybe even 7 out of 8. I think only 1 year after that didn't snow, and that was like the best year ever. But basically every year it snowed, and so I take it upon myself, before anyone falls in that ditch ever again, I go outside, I get my shovel, and I dig that damn hole, and I make sure you see the ground. Because I am never, ever doing that again. Oh, it was beyond asinine of how painful it was. Like, oh, it was just, and because of that, I hate snow forever, right? I would not mind moving to like parts of like, I'm trying to think of like where I would move to. It's like, somewhere like maybe Italy or something, and stay in like the lower part of Italy, right? I guess technically that would be more north. The southern part is more mountainous, but stay in like the lower part of Italy, which is up north, where it doesn't snow, right? That's where I want to live, right? I don't want to live in a place that was like, oh no, snow, right? But then the problem is, like, of course, as much as I hate snow, the reason what makes Vancouver great is that I don't have to deal with like critters, right? When I say critters, I mean like big ass spiders and a lot of exotic insects and stuff like that. Because I think that's worse. So I mean, I know I sound like a whiny baby, whereas like I hate snow, but I guess the cold weather I don't mind. It's the snow I hate, right? I don't mind when, like, once again, when it's like crappy cold rain in Vancouver. I like it. I like the cold rain. I like icy rain in Vancouver. I'm weird like that, but I only really like it because it's not snow. So there's that, right? And so Vancouver, Vancouver be like that, and I complain about it every year, and I wish every year that it doesn't snow because I really, really don't want to deal with shoveling people's trucks out of ditches ever again. And so, like I said earlier, I take it upon myself to dig that ditch, dig the snow out of it, so you can, when you're driving, you can see it, and you don't think, oh, I'm just gonna go over the snow. No, you're not gonna go over the snow, especially with a truck. You're not. You are not falling in that ditch. I am not digging you out. But anyway, that's my crazy tirade of snow. And the funny thing was, this all came because we were talking about. This all came about because we were talking about like baby shower yesterday, and it's like, oh yeah, do the baby shower earlier than later so we can avoid snow. Because another thing too, and another reason why I hate snow so much is that, like, okay, so for instance, around Christmas time, a Christmas tradition in the family. So basically Christmas time, a Christmas tradition in the family. On one of the sides of my family, I won't say which one. On one of the sides of my family, we do a dinner on Boxing Day because we spend Christmas Day with the other side of the family, basically, right? So on Boxing Day, we spend, part of the family spends Christmas together, and we spend Christmas at my aunt's house. But for some reason, my aunt's family doesn't shovel their own property. And so, when we go over, guess who has to do the shoveling? Oh, Michael's here. He can do the shoveling, right? Every time. It's like, and I'm like, it's like, I would just say, like, come on, get my cousin-in-laws to do it, right? Get my cousin-in-laws to shovel the snow. They're men too, right? Like, come on. Why you gotta put me through it every single time? Well, it sucks. It sucks. Cause see, the funny thing is that, like, the reason why it always ends up being me doing it is because, like, another thing that's also weird is that even though we do, like, Christmas dinner at my aunt's house, my dad does like half the cooking anyway. Because my dad's he's known for being a pretty good cook, and that's where I learned all my cooking abilities from. It's from my dad, and it's like, it's one of the skills I actually have. Is like, yes, I can cook. I'm not great at a lot. I'm not good at a lot of other things. I'm a pretty good cook. Only because my dad taught me pretty well, right? So my dad would cook for those meals, and then he would because he's cooking, he has to go earlier, right? So I end up going with him to help bring stuff over and whatever, right? Like the turkey cooker and all that, right? And then while I'm there, it's like, okay, well, Michael's here and it's snowing, so you can shovel the property for us because they don't do it themselves. Oh God, that's just that was one reason why it was so painful, right? Because it's not like there aren't other men in my family, right? It's just none of them ever get around to doing it, and so that also, not to make it sound like I'm resentful or anything, even though it's super easy to be sometimes, but it's like, you you don't want to, like, well, it's one of those things where it's like, why Cinderella hated her step family so much because they treated her like a slave. Yeah, I get that sometimes. Especially when it comes to shoveling snow. Oh God. So when December rolls around, I'm hoping to snow around here. Because what would be really, really hilarious? If, midstream, it's like, oh, Michael, you gotta shovel snow. And I'm like in the middle of a stream, right? With you guys. Excuse me. Because that can definitely happen. It's actually happened before. I recall an old video, actually. I think I was playing Tokyo Mirage. This was like in January last year. Or beginning of this year, I guess. Remember when I started, I resumed, rather, the Tokyo Mirage playthrough in January. And I actually had to end the stream early because, like, I was called to shovel snow. Because it was snowing heavily last year, if you guys remember that. I remember it, so. It doesn't like. Hopefully, see that's another reason why I don't want it to snow. Right, icy rain I can handle, but if it snows, then there might be times where it's like, oh, I want to stream, but then it's like, oh, you can't stream because you have to shovel snow. Right, so I mean, maybe if I made more money, I just hire a maid or something to like do a lot of house stuff, and then hire a snow shoveler too. If I had more money, I'd do that. It's one of those things that like, see, this is like, it's what sucks when you don't make enough money, right? It's like, oh, I wish I could just pay someone to do these things for me. But at the same time, it's like one of the, I know we're totally a total different tone shift, but I mean, random ass podcasts like this tends to happen. Totally different tone shift, but one of those funny things where like, why is it that we admire a lot of people who have, let's put it this way. On the one hand, people admire someone else who has wealth, right? Let's say like in the dating pool kind of thing. You want to date someone who has wealth. That way you can do more stuff, right? You can go to fancier restaurants. You can maybe go on trips and stuff. You know, when you get if you get married, then having money is a huge boon. One, if you want to become a homeowner, or paying for weddings yourself, stuff like that. Having money, amazing, right? It's amazing. But then people also admire. But then those same people also admire poorer people, because then poorer people like myself, us poor guys, we develop all the skills. So then, and I mean this makes me sound so terrible when I'm going to say it this way. I've encountered, it's one of those funny things where like I've dated a couple of women in my life, and they kind of fall into this idiotic paradox where it's like, on the one hand, I'm attractive because I possess a lot of these skills. I possess skills that I can do things myself. I can cook for myself. I can, fix like machinery and do some plumbing stuff myself. I can do that myself. I mean, when I was living in Langley doing my master's, a lot of the guys I lived with also needed me to do stuff because they didn't. Well, a lot of these guys are like 20 years old, and most of the time their mom does everything for them, right? So they don't know how to like, you know, fix a clogged toilet, or when the toilet starts flooding. They don't want to do any of that, right? I know how to do all that because I have to deal with that my whole life, right? I live like one of those funny things too. Like if you check Vancouver real estate, it's hilarious. Sidetrack, but Vancouver real estate is so stupid. It's like the property I live on is like super expensive. It's like worth a couple $1,000,000 because like it's a big plot, and we own this house, right? But at the same time, if you looked at the outside, you would never think this house was like 2 mil plus in the house I live in. If you looked at it from the outside, you would never think that because it's like I live in like some crappy little shack. The house is like super old, you know. Not everything is up to code, right? My house isn't super modernized. So then because my house isn't modernized, when it comes to like fixing stuff, fixing the flooring, fixing pipes, I do it myself, right? Because now my dad is old, so he doesn't do it much anymore. Although my dad's been picking that up again, like he's getting into like carpentry and stuff now that he's retired. So he's picking up carpentry as like a hobby. And it's really helpful. Like it's great that he helps me out because like a lot of the maintenance stuff I do it now, because well, I'm only 30 something, right? I mean, I'm the typical age that a man should be doing this kind of stuff, right? And so I do it now, and I do all of that. And so I on the one hand, when I've dated girls in like, well, actually for a long time I didn't date, but when I was like in my mid to late 20s, I dated a couple girls here and there, and I was attracted because I had these skills. I was a very practical, skilled guy, and and I should have seen the red flags when I dated girls that like they weren't good at cooking. They hardly ever clean. Like I dated this one girl, and I knew her from like before, like when we were living in the same apartment building in Langley, and I've seen her room and it's like terrible, right? When she was living in an apartment in Langley, and then like later on, I should have seen the red flags that she wasn't very good with cleaning. So like those are not attractive qualities. So basically, she liked all the things, like all these qualities I had, because I had all these skills. But then I guess I was an idiot and only liked her because, well, she was good looking, and you know, we had some similar interests. Like, you know, she was a girl that was like into video games and stuff like that, and stuff like that. And so, and into like my kind of weird literature, like science fiction, whatever. Right? She was into those kind of things, and so I thought that was a good way of building a relationship. And you know, it is right. You should have similar interests. But then when she didn't have any domestic skills, oh man, that was a huge red flag that I did not catch until it was too late. And so, but then the funny thing was, she ended up dumping me because I was poor. I was a poor man, right? So like when you're a poor man, I don't take her shopping kind of thing, right? I don't do those kind of things. And then of course, if you're a poor man like myself, and you know, you don't, it's harder to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna get married sooner than later, because when you're a poor man, you're busy about trying to make money to get a place to live or whatever, right? When you're a poor person like myself, then those things are much more difficult, and then makes you unattractive, right? So it's this weird paradox, right? And of course, I mean, it's one of those things, and it's this sounds terrible, but like the modern feminist movement has kind of taught women that you can have your cake and eat it too. So the only guys you should date are the guys who are they are wealthy enough to do all those things for you, you know, buy you stuff and take you shopping often and whatever. And they have to possess domestic skills. But most guys only have one or the other. Most guys usually are not both, because once again, right? With guys, it's either I do things myself or I pay someone to do things for me, right? So either you're the guy who's poor but does it himself, or you're the rich guy who just pays other people to do it. So it's for most guys, and I'm sorry, ladies, this is the fact of the matter. But with guys, that's how it is, right? We're either one or the other. We're very rarely ever both, right? I can hardly think of a guy that is in fact both, other than maybe an ex-military guy, right? Like my other ex-girlfriend's dad or something, right? Because I also dated a girl who was like from a military family, so that obviously wasn't going to work, because then I was the poor guy dating a rich girl, right? And that usually doesn't work very well either, right? So, but then of course her dad is he was rich and he was skilled because he was ex-military, right? And so in military, you have to develop all those skills like cooking or whatever, because you got to be able to survive too, right? And then you get money because the military service, you know, it does pay a lot, right? Of course, to be fair, I mean, it's a huge compensation, right? Because, you know, if the military is a very, let's say, physically taxing job, and if you actually have to go to combat, like, you know, say one of my ex-girlfriend's dad was, right? He had, you know, he fought in a war. You know, there's a chance you could die, right? So obviously, if you're a military person, they pay you a lot of money, and so. But of course, the problem with that relationship I had was like, okay, I was I'm the poor guy dating a rich girl. That's not gonna last for very long. And you know, it's just one of those tough things in life, right? But you have to it's just one of those things about like having domestic skills and stuff like that. That it's kind of this weird paradox, right? Like on the one hand, domestic skills make you attractive, but usually guys who have those skills are usually poor, and then that makes you unattractive. So you just gotta deal with it, I guess. It's a it's a struggle. And then of course, like now I'm still a poor ass guy, right, in my 30s, because I mean, sure I work full time now, but for a long time I didn't, and that really hampered things down too, right? For a long time I didn't work full time, and any time I did, it was not good, right? Like I've told you stories. I used to work security, right, and that was a full time job, but it was really stupid, in the sense of like, remember when I said in military you get compensated really well because you put yourself in dangerous situations? Security guards, complete opposite. You get put in dangerous situations, you don't get compensated. You know, like people talk about how great, how like people think that like Canada's great because the minimum wage is way higher in Vancouver than it is in like say someplace in Texas. So my buddy Baruka, which I should really put a link to his channel if I anytime I bring him up. But you've seen Tosi Baruka around. You can just look up Tosi Baruka on YouTube, you'll find him. My buddy Burke, as I call him, or Tosi Baruka, I should be more formal when I'm talking about him. Tosi Baruka, when he works, he lives in some place in Texas, and he works like he works at a dollar store kind of thing. And I think if memory serves, I think he told me he gets paid like $9 an hour, 9 American though, which is the equivalent of like 12, maybe 13, no, about $12 Canadian, something like that. He works like he gets 9 American an hour, something like that, right? And then let's translate to roughly $12 Canadian. I know it's a little more than that, but let's just say $12, right? We're working at a dollar store. And so people think, well, that's such a terrible, that's not a real living wage, and you're not wrong, it isn't. Especially, well, that's the other thing too about perspective, right? Because Texas stuff, like to live in Texas costs less than it does to live in Vancouver, right? Living in Vancouver is very expensive, and that's why when if you meet people in Vancouver, everybody complains about how terrible things are in Vancouver because of like, okay, it's really expensive to live in Vancouver, but hardly anyone ever makes enough money, myself included. So when I used to work security, so before I talk about the security part, the minimum wage in Vancouver, so my buddy Berg in Texas makes $9 an hour, which is roughly $12 Canadian. The minimum wage in Vancouver is $15 Canadian, which roughly translates to like what? $12 US, maybe a little less, something like that, right? It's like $11, $12 US. Let's say we're around $12, right? So a minimum wage in Vancouver would be $3 more than say in Texas, right? And that's why people say, well, Vancouver's better than Texas. Well, aside from the whole like Texas is super conservative, and therefore conservative equals bad in a lot of people's minds. But minus that whole thing, people say, well, see, you make more in Vancouver. But one, the thing that people don't tell you is that when in places like Texas and in a lot of places in the United States, the minimum wage is low. That's true. But wage ranges are a lot larger. Now, if you haven't figured out what that means, basically, yes, the minimum wage jobs are kind of low. But you can find other jobs that quickly go up beyond that pretty quickly. And that's kind of how America does their economy. The high schoolers work at McDonald's and only make $9 an hour, right? The college student only works at like, these $9 jobs. But then the average working person, like say someone my age, right, who actually is working a career job or what should be a career job, would not be making $9 an hour. Like I said, like Tosi Baruka works at a dollar store, right? He works a shift job at a dollar store. He works a job that someone his age would be working, and they only make $9 an hour. They work a student's job. Right? When I was wearing a security guards is, well, it depends on what kind of security guard you are, but it shouldn't really matter because security guards are a high risk job. At least it technically is, because sure that you have the whole stereotype of like your mall cop who doesn't do anything, right? Sure, there's those stereotypes and they do exist, but they're actually not as common as you think they are. The stereotypical like mall cop that does nothing, right? But in another thing too is that like when I was working security, it's like in Vancouver, and once again, it's one of those, I'm debunking the myth of like Vancouver's a nice place to live, because in actuality, it actually really isn't. It's only good because of like food is good here, and because my family, we are homeowners, so living in my house is great, right? Because we own this house, right? So that's what makes living in Vancouver great. But like a lot of things are actually pretty terrible, and one of them is like when I was wearing a security guard job, one, they put you in super dangerous places. You go to like this all the places that hire you are the seedy part of town, because those parts of the city, they're like, oh, we're tired of people shoplifting and threatening our employees and whatever, right? So we want security guards. But you think people in like the Vancouver slums give a shit if there's a security guard? They'll threaten him too, right? I've had knives pulled on me, right? Multiple times actually, right? And you think like a guy getting a knife pulled on him, that's a high danger job, right? But the funny thing is, you know how much I was making that security job? I was making $15 an hour, Canadian. Which, if you recall, like 10 minutes ago, less than that, that is how much I said was the minimum wage. That's right, in Vancouver. And that's the thing a lot of people don't tell you. In Vancouver, the big problem is that the wage range is really low. Everybody, the bulk of people in Vancouver actually make minimum wage. Most people do, right? The only people that aren't are like, the high tech jobs, because tech jobs cannot pay you minimum wage, because a tech job would crumble pretty quickly. So the tech jobs don't make minimum wage. Government jobs, because they take all the money from everyone else and then they can reallocate it accordingly. So they don't make minimum wage. And then drug dealers don't make minimum wage, right? So those are the only people in Vancouver that don't make minimum wage, right? But everybody else here, we all make minimum wage, right? And that's why everybody in Vancouver complains, right? About, the fact that it sucks living in Vancouver, because everybody makes minimum wage, right? And so it's really silly, right? I mean, yeah. And then I look back, it's like, man, working that security job was so stupid. I put myself in danger so many times and only got paid minimum wage. This is pretty bad. I don't work in the company anymore, so I'm allowed to talk shit about them. Even though, yes, you shouldn't be saying bad things about other people, especially as a pastor. But like, dude, the scary thing, and the other scary thing too, is that like nobody would have cared if I died at that job, right? The company definitely would not have cared if I had been killed on the job, right? Let alone anyone else would have cared if I had died during that job, right? So it was one of those things that was so depressing when I was working that job. But then that's the other thing that makes now the reason why I brought up the real reason why I brought the security job thing was because I want to talk about how little I made. And my current job, I still basically make minimum wage. I don't mind admitting that on air, that yes, even though I work a full-time job, I work minimum wage, because everyone here makes minimum wage. The only people at my job that doesn't make minimum wage is my boss, right? The only person, right? Like, and when I say, and before people say like, well, technically my supervisor makes like more money than I do. $15 regular employee. My supervisor makes $18, $17, $18 an hour, if even that much. I don't think he makes that much more than I do for a supervisor position. It's not a big difference, right? He's basically making minimum wage, right? And then all the regular employees, we all make minimum wage, right? Everybody works minimum wage, and so but then the thing is that like, even though you look at okay, the boss makes the most money. You know how much he makes? He probably only makes a little more than everyone else. He probably, like, sure, if you compare it to the guy who's minimum wage, it looks like it's a lot more. But if I told you like, oh yeah, my boss only makes like $23 an hour, technically, that's not that much, right? And especially like if you go $23 an hour, it's not that 23 Canadian is not that much money, right? And then of course you run into the real problem of why that's not enough money is not so much because $23 an hour, which is how much my boss probably makes, it's not that $23 an hour isn't that much money. It is enough to live on, or it would be enough to live on and then of course you run into, we're entering the political territory. If our politicians didn't tax us so much, right? Because that's the other thing too, that Americans, they complain that their taxing is bad. You see nothing yet, right? American tax is one thing. Canadian tax is even worse. And then you get to like European countries and people say, European countries are great. Some jobs they make like some of their lower end jobs make $30 an hour. Yeah, but then like in places like Norway and whatever, that people make $30 an hour over there. they also get taxed like ridiculously over there. And then in the end, they make just as little as like I do, if not less, right? Well, no, they probably make more than I do, but like still, right? The idea is that like the real problem is not so much of we make little money; it's the fact that government bureaucrats take so much out of our pockets through absurd taxes, right? And then you get the age old complaint of like, well, everything, all prices go up except our paychecks, right? And I mean that's true, right? And that, but then of course the problem is our governments don't do anything to alleviate the pressure on people's paychecks not going up that fast, right? And then that's the other thing too. When people talk about like, okay, well, back in the day where the minimum wage was a lot lower, once again that wage range was larger. But now that when people talk about like, well, bumping up the minimum wage, that would be better, right? It'll be better for society, bump minimum wage. Not really, because all you do is you just close the gap between the average worker and the minimum wage. So now, with bumping up the minimum wage, really the minimum wage is basically close to the average worker gap. But the problem is, once again, super heavy taxes and stuff like that, taxing the shit out of us kind of thing, that even the average worker pay of like the 15 bucks an hour thing is no longer valid, right? And then of course now you get people trying to argue, well, then everyone should go up, but then you run into other problems, right? Then the government's going to tax even more and then more, and then of course you run into problems of like, okay, who's going to pay government workers because they get paid off those taxes, but then that means the government has to do more taxes, and that means everyone else is going to have less money, right? And you run into all kinds of idiotic things like that. And that's why, you know, that's the problem of the economy essentially, right? But that's the thing. That's the other thing. A lot of girls don't understand. At least, you know, I hate to use the word feminist in this context, but that's a lot of thing like feminist women don't understand. When it's like men are poor, yeah, no shit, we're poor because like everybody's poor. Deal with it. Anyway, it's 5:30. I've rambled a lot. Even got some hot takes in there, which I know you guys enjoy me throwing hot takes out there. I mean, this is Streaming Parson channel. It's all about the hot takes, right? But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out. Just me rambling about dumb crap. Because, you know, before you know, it's going to be December soon, and we're going to be like Christmas mode, right? So that's one thing to look forward to is I won't have these like depressing kind of talks with you guys, and I won't go into these. Hopefully, we won't be going to like more of these depressing things. Like I know this one's going to end kind of depressing with like how we're all poor, but you know, we're going to go in that Christmas mode pretty soon. And so I'm looking forward to doing Christmas related podcasts and Christmas related Bible readings and Christmas related game streams, even probably like a few like gimmicky Christmas related things um, with you. I'm really hoping to do that. And so with that said, you know, hope you guys subscribe to the channel so you can be notified. Hit those notification bells. I mean, I think that's still a thing, right? YouTube's changed actually a little bit in like the last few days, so I don't know what they still do these days. So I don't know if that rhetoric is still the same, right? You know, subscribe, hit the notification bell, so you guys can know when we start doing our more Christmas related things when it comes, because it's coming soon, guys. I mean, you think, oh, it's still November. No, December's gonna creep up on you pretty quickly. Trust me, it will. But with that said, hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and God bless you. I'll see you guys for Throwback Thursday.